The 2012 version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is pretty well known for both its characters as well as its frequent action scenes. But in a series that's full of people, both humans and mutants, fighting each other, you have to wonder who's the most powerful out of all of them. I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is TMNT 2012 Week 2 Powerful. For this list, we're not just going to be looking at physical strength when it comes to a character's ranking. We're also going to be looking at each character's skills, intelligence, powers and/or weapons, resources, and overall wins and/or accomplishments. We also can't cover every character due to the sheer number of them in this show, and as such, we'll primarily be looking at the main heroes and villains. With that out of the way, let's get started. The weakest character by far, unfortunately, has to be Mando Gecko. Before getting mutated, Mando was just an ordinary teenage boy, being even younger than the Turtles. Unfortunately, not even becoming a mutant could do much in terms of strength or ability. He can, however, use his tail as an extra appendage and climb up walls. He's also a decent skateboarder. However, he isn't very physically strong, nor does he have any formal combat training.
I just need a minute to catch my breath.
As such, he's often relying on others whenever he's in a battle. Mando can also be pretty naive due to his age. All of these factors combined easily makes him the weakest character in TMNT 2012. For our next weakest, we have the always unlucky Baxter Stockman. Although he was pretty brilliant in his own right, Stockman still wasn't necessarily the brightest. Anytime he tried to give himself an advantage through an invention or machine, it really wouldn't take too long for the Turtles to find a way around it and defeat him. Without armor or robotic mousers to back him up, Stockman is a pretty scrawny and ultimately harmless fighter, more likely to run away than actually fight. As for his mutation, we will acknowledge that along with gaining the ability to fly, Stockman gets a decent strength boost too, being strong enough to actually lift the Turtles off the ground. But of course, strength still can't make up for a lack of combat prowess, so Stockman still lands near the bottom of our list. Up next is the cheeky witch, Shinigami. Shinny made quite a name for herself when she was able to defeat April, who had just become an unofficial kunoichi. While not too strong physically, she still knows how to fight and can be pretty clever as well. Along with her magical illusions and spells, Shinny also uses a kusarigama as well as the hypnostones. Unfortunately, the latter really isn't too impressive as it only worked on Tiger Claw for a few seconds. Additionally, April is the only notable person that Shinigami has ever beaten in a one-on-one on-screen fight, and thus doesn't have too many personal wins under her belt in comparison to many of the other characters.
My sensei doesn't need a turtle weapon. Your Tessin will do just fine.
Still, her skills in ninjutsu and as a witch allow her to rank above Mando and Stockman. From witchcraft to vigilantism, we're ranking Casey Jones next. As much of an asset as Casey can be to the Hamato clan, there really is no denying that out of all of them, Casey is the weakest. That's not to say he isn't still strong. The kid definitely knows how to throw down, and has more than enough weapons to fill an armory. From bats and hockey sticks to exploding pucks and a homemade taser. Casey is also physically fit, able to keep up with most fighters even when they outmatch him in both size and skill. This was proven when he was able to hold his own against Raph, a skilled ninja, and when he was able to eventually win a fight against Hun. He also once knocked out one of the Rat King's giant rats with just his bare fist. Unfortunately, when compared to the rest of the Hamato clan, as well as many of the series' mutant baddies, Casey just isn't able to compete on his own as an ordinary human. But hey, as far as humans go, he's still pretty tough.
Actually, crime fighting's pretty boring.
Next is another tragic character, Mutagen Man. As Timothy, he had very little combat potential. He was uncoordinated, clumsy, and weak, although we'll give him points for determination.
I'm gonna be a mutant like you!
While his mutation into Mutagen Man helped with his strength and durability, making him strong enough to go on a destructive rampage, his mental instability means that he can't really strategize and can be easily tricked, as Donatello demonstrates. Honestly, if it weren't for the strength boost and his limb generating abilities, Mutagen Man would be even lower down on this list. Still, we felt that his physical abilities were enough to rank him above Casey, given that the turtles were only able to defeat him by freezing him. Next up is the alligator turned mighty mute animal, Leatherhead. Having survived being experimented on by the Krang, Leatherhead showed both physical and spiritual strength from the beginning. One of his biggest victories came when he was able to subdue Trog, a large rock alien from Dimension X, long enough for the turtles to escape. He was also strong enough to briefly go toe-to-toe with Shredder, despite being outmatched in terms of skill and technique. As an alligator, he also has a tough armored hide and is extremely resistant to attacks even from Krang laser blasts. Although his rage moments caused him issues in the beginning, he was able to overcome this flaw through Michelangelo's help. His final win came when he was the one to finish off Rahzar, using his abilities in the water to his advantage. Simply put, Leatherhead is one of the Hamato clan's strongest allies based on pure physical ability alone, and while being in Dimension X might have aged him, you'd hardly know it by looking at how many wins this guy has had. Just above Leatherhead is his teammate Slash. Armed with a mace and a whole lot of strength, Slash is one of the physically strongest mutants in the show, right up there with Leatherhead and the Super Shredder. In his first appearance, he was able to fight and outmatch all 4 of the turtles with ease, only being defeated when Raph hit one of his pressure points. This shows that while he can be brought down, it can likely only be done through skill and strategy. This is seen again through his losses in the second half of the series, namely against the Hammer and the Super Shredder. Simply put, physical power just isn't enough when you're up against mutants who are just as strong, if not stronger. We will hand it to Slash that he is extremely durable, and as the leader of the Mutanimals, he does know a bit about strategizing.
We may need to lose some dead weight.
Still, given that he wasn't traditionally trained like many of the other characters were, we just couldn't put him any higher. Up next, we have one of the oldest villains of the series, Zever, aka Fish Face. Let's get this out of the way first. Being a mutant fish has a pretty big disadvantage. Zever is unable to survive without water, and that dangerous weakness can be easily taken advantage of. He also requires robot legs to walk and properly fight. But even with these notable weaknesses, Zever has a lot going for him. Mainly, his fish biology has granted him a deadly venom that once nearly killed Raph, as well as enhanced strength and enhanced speed while in the water. In terms of weapons, Zever typically uses butterfly knives and a bali sword. He's also one of the more intelligent villains in the show and knows capoeira, a Brazilian martial art form. Honestly, even when taking into account how easy it would be to incapacitate and suffocate him, he still manages to be one of the turtles' most deadliest foes. Falling surprisingly low on our list is the turtle's sensei, Splinter. Now, before you all get up in arms about this ranking, we do have our reasons. As a ninjutsu master, Splinter has plenty of skills and expertise. He's skilled in several different weapons and martial arts forms, has enhanced senses as a rat, and can even fight while drunk, as seen in Tale of Tiger Claw. Splinter can also be pretty durable, in that he was able to survive a huge 1,000-foot drop after his first battle with the Super Shredder, coming out of it with only a broken leg. We also see throughout the show that he's able to fight off opponents like Foot Ninjas, Fish Face, and Dog Pound. Unfortunately, Splinter is an older character, one who has lost fights and even nearly died a couple of times at the hand of Shredder, someone he struggled to beat even as a human. Speaking of which, it's rare for Splinter to even fight outside of the dojo, and when he does, half the time it doesn't end well for him.
Perhaps I do need to get out of the sewers for a time.
Taking his age, average size, and lack of any super mutant abilities into account, we just had to put him here. Finishing off the Mutanimals in this list, we have Dr. Rockwell next. Again, this choice may be a bit controversial, but it really all comes down to their abilities. No, Dr. Rockwell may not be too strong physically, but his mutant abilities are what push him up this high. He possesses a psychic ability to read minds and sense a person's intentions, giving him a distinct advantage in evasion and combat. Rockwell's psychic abilities also extend to him being able to move, control, and manipulate objects with his mind and generate telekinetic blasts from his head. Rockwell is also able to reach out to allies telepathically, which is also a huge advantage. Additionally, while he's far from being the strongest, being an ape allows him to be incredibly strong, fast, and agile, which means he has something to rely on if an opponent is able to counter his psychic abilities. Had Rockwell been more interested in training and fighting than science, he might have been ranked even higher. Following him is the always groovy thief, Bebop. As a human and a skilled thief, Bebop tended to fight smarter instead of harder, as we saw when he was able to take out all of Shredder's guards on his own. He uses a cloaking suit to gain the upper hand over enemies, as well as an energy mohawk and a variety of bombs as his defenses. He is also pretty agile, using his dancing as a way to dodge and fight. He also gained a heightened sense of smell after mutating into a warthog. Though he's much more intelligent and skilled than his 1987 counterpart, even being able to defeat the 87 Turtles with relative ease, Bebop's lack of physical strength and his reliance on his tech and his cloaking, both of which can be fallible, stops him from going any higher. We've finally come to our first Ninja Turtle, Donatello. Yeah, apologies to all the Donnie fans out there, but we ultimately had to name him as the weakest of the 4 turtles. Despite being book smart, it's been shown throughout the series that he sometimes doesn't understand and/or has a hard time grasping the lectures of Master Splinter. He can sometimes overthink or over-strategize, causing him to lose a fight. We should also take into account that, next to Mikey, he likely spends the least amount of time in training, given that he'd rather work in his lab. That being said, Donnie is still an extremely skilled ninja at the end of the day. He's a master with his bow, which can also turn into a naginata for more deadly attacks, and it's often Donnie's brain that allows him to find solutions in a fight.
Hey, I'm smarter than all you guys put together. It should be me.
This was seen when he was able to figure out how to defeat Timothy. Him being a mutant also makes him stronger, faster, and more durable than a human. As such, we felt we couldn't put him any lower, even if he is slightly weaker than his brothers. Next on our list is the Kunoichi extraordinaire, Karai. Yet another human who is eventually mutated, Karai managed to be formidable in both of her forms. Being trained by the Shredder himself, Karai is in peak physical condition and is an expert in several different martial arts and ninjutsu fields. Through her snake transformation, she not only gains fangs, but also deadly venom spit and secretion, night vision, and a speed boost both in and out of the water. We should also mention that her skin shedding ability allows her to heal from burns, and she is even able to briefly hypnotize her opponents. Unfortunately, Karai sometimes doesn't get the chance to show off her skills. She ends up getting captured and brainwashed several times throughout the show, showing that it's pretty easy for people to overpower her. Karai can also be arrogant and headstrong at times, which can also lead to her defeats. Even with all of her strength and abilities, she wasn't able to defeat her father in his super form. Granted, not too many people can defeat the Super Shredder, but this defeat, combined with all of her others, keeps her in this spot. Switching back over to the villains, we have Bradford aka Razar next. Being one of Shredder's top henchmen, it's pretty easy to see why. Even as a human, this guy was pretty strong and skilled, being a martial artist master, a ninjutsu master, and a master swordsman. Then, after mutating twice, Bradford ended up developing enhanced strength, durability, speed, agility, and a heightened sense of hearing, seeing, and smell due to being mutated with a canine. He also has bone spikes as well as claws and fangs that he can use as weapons. Additionally, despite looking extremely monstrous, Bradford is still mentally capable and is able to both strategize and lead Foot Clan soldiers. But while Bradford may not have any major physical weaknesses, it's often his cockiness or anger that'll get the better of him, leading him to being outmatched by the Turtles. He also wasn't strong enough to break out of Leatherhead's grasp and ended up drowning at the end of the show's 4th season. Though he was resurrected, he ended up just falling into the netherworld shortly after. Given that he's the only major henchman to die, we felt that we couldn't quite rank him any higher. Up next, we have the turtle in red, Raphael. Although he may be the one who's always ready for a fight, we can't quite call him the most powerful. That being said, Raph is extremely strong. He's certainly durable, able to take a pummeling from Slash and still get back up. His most notable ability is his brute strength, which is only increased by his anger. Although this anger can also sometimes distract him.
He was the angriest, nastiest guy you ever met.
Except for you.
Still, this ability has occasionally allowed him to briefly get the better of more skilled characters like Leo and the Super Shredder. So yeah, Raph is definitely the physically strongest turtle, but not necessarily the most powerful. Compared to the other two turtles, it's his skill as well as, again, his anger that stops him from being ranked above them. Ranked just a bit above his older brother is Michelangelo. It's said that of all the turtles, Mikey has the most potential, and he certainly proves that. Even as early as Season 1, remember when he was able to take down Bradford using his own kata, a move that Mikey had only just learned? Splinter has also stated before that Mikey is able to move and act without thinking, and that he, along with Leo, have the highest intuition out of all his brothers. This isn't even taking into account Mikey's weapons, Nunchaku and Kusarigama, which are not only versatile, but also grant him a long-range attack. Mikey is also the most agile of his brothers, as well as the most unpredictable, and is implied to have the most raw talent. Finally, we just have to bring up Mikey's savage side. Mikey was both strong and skilled enough to survive for months in Dimension X, something his brothers struggled to do. All of these things are enough to earn him the title of the second most powerful turtle. Managing to place several spots above his partner is Rocksteady. Next to Casey and one other character who we'll get to in a moment, Rocksteady is probably the character with the biggest variety in weapons. No surprise there, given that he's a weapon expert and an arms dealer. His weapons include knuckle dusters, a hammer and sickle, scattergun, flamethrower, rocket launcher, and his own horn. Speaking of his mutation, Rocksteady becomes extremely strong and durable once he becomes a rhino. But even with a huge size boost, Rocksteady manages to be pretty fast on his feet too. It's insanely easy for him to knock out opponents, and at one point even managed to break Casey's ribs in what was a pretty brutal scene. He's also great at hand-to-hand combat and is an excellent marksman. It's hard to find any true weakness with this guy outside of him occasionally being tricked by others. Ultimately, what stops him from going any higher isn't anything of Rocksteady's, but just the fact that our last few characters really are that powerful. Finishing off the henchmen, we naturally have the assassin Tiger Claw. Tigers are already strong physically, but Tiger Claw has managed to hone that strength through traditional martial arts training. Tiger Claw was even durable enough to fight his way out of a giant worm's stomach and even defeat a Krang army single-handed.
And you believe such a thing could contain my hate?
He's also incredibly acrobatic, has enhanced smell and hearing, and given that he has sharp claws and fangs, he's never defenseless. Of course, he's got plenty of other weapons too. His main weapons are his giant sword and his guns that can fire nets, freeze rays, and laser blasts. Finally, as an assassin, he can be incredibly skilled and strategic when he wants to be, and isn't afraid to fight dirty in order to defeat his target. With all this power, why are we only ranking him here? Well, again, it all comes down to training, and while Tiger Claw may have a ton of skills, others, such as Splinter and Leonardo, have managed to outwit him, while others like Shredder and April can overpower him. Because of this, Tiger Claw ends up falling just a bit short of our most powerful characters. Just outside the top 5, we're ranking the infamous Shredder. Oh boy, where do we start with this one? Being the big bad of the series, of course Shredder is gonna have a ton of strength and skill. Along with being a ninjutsu master, armed with a katana and razor-sharp blades, he's also a master tactician and manipulator, allowing him to lead his clan. As the Super Shredder, he gains superhuman strength, near invulnerability, and the ability to project steel and bone, while as Zombie Shredder, he gains telekinesis. He also ended up becoming immune to retro mutagen. Of all the enemies in the show, Shredder was the hardest to defeat, as even when he did lose a fight, it was rare for him to be out of it for very long. Splinter was only able to truly defeat him once, during the invasion of the Triceratons, and once Shredder mutated, not even being crushed by a garbage truck could kill him.
I have molded myself into perfection, Rat-Man.
It ultimately takes Leo cutting off his head for him to finally die, and even then, it was a pretty close call. All in all, Shredder manages to mostly live up to his reputation of being practically unstoppable. But at the end of the day, he did ultimately lose, so we could only put him in our top 5. We've finally reached the leader of the Hamato clan, Leonardo. Naturally, as the turtle who trains the most, he would be the most skilled. He knows several techniques that his brothers don't, including how to heal himself and how to use pressure points. He's also the only one of his brothers to land a punch on Splinter, and this was during Season 1. Another great moment was when Leo was able to overcome the fear spores. Again, something the rest of his team couldn't do.
I face my fear every single day.
We can't forget how he was able to take on all of Shredder's henchmen all on his own at the end of Season 2. Sure, the fight still ended in a loss, but the fact that it even lasted that long is impressive. At the beginning of Season 3, Leo was actually skilled enough to fight Shredder to a standstill all on his own. Finally, although it was an extremely close fight, it was still Leo that managed to land the killing hit on Shredder in the end. Strategic, focused, and proficient in a variety of weapons, Leo easily earns the ranking of the most powerful turtle. When it came to choosing the strongest Hamato clan member, however, we just had to go with April O'Neil. Once seen as a bit of a damsel, April managed to rise through the ranks of her clan in a short amount of time, ultimately becoming its most powerful member. Starting with her more human side, April is a trained kunoichi, and while she isn't the same level as someone like Karai or Shinigami, April is still able to hold her own in a hand-to-hand fight. She was even able to use the Dragon's Tail move to immobilize Tiger Claw. Her weapons include a Tessin, a laser gun, and a Tanto blade, allowing her to fight both at close range and long range. Through her abilities that came from being a Krang experiment, April also has a sixth sense, telepathy, and extremely powerful telekinesis. The episode The Power Inside Her showed just how powerful she could be, having the ability to disintegrate someone with little to no effort on her part. Now yes, April's power boost in the 4th season was mostly due to the Aeon Crystal. However, the crystal could only bring out what was already there, and given that April could put Donnie back together without it, it stands to reason that with enough training and effort, April could one day be that powerful again all on her own. Keep in mind, April is still in her teens, so just imagine how powerful she becomes as an adult. We will acknowledge that the Turtles and the other traditionally trained fighters would still be able to outmatch her in a purely hand-to-hand fight, given that she only trained as a kunoichi for a year or so. But in terms of raw power, there are only a few other characters who can beat her. The Bronze Medal of Power is going to Lord Drag. Certainly one of the most annoying opponents that the Turtles have faced both during and after their space adventures, Drag is one ruler you don't want to mess with. Being an insect, he naturally has fangs that he can use in combat, as well as a small array of weapons such as webs, ropes, a chest rocket, and an electric blaster. Much like Stockman and Shredder, Drag also has a collection of robots that can do his bidding, and even if they're able to be defeated easily, numbers still account for something. And like a cockroach, Drag was one of those villains that just wouldn't stay dead. He was able to survive being decapitated and being stuck in space. It takes his ship being blown up for him to finally die, and honestly, this is the main reason why he ranks so high, though he still isn't our most powerful baddie. For our silver medal of power, we're giving it to the demon Cavixx. Coming from the 5th season of the show, Cavixx is the lord of the Demo Dragons and is the ruler of the Netherworld. Naturally, a supernatural creature like him is gonna have some pretty impressive powers and abilities. Along with having the ability to fly and breathe fire, he also has super strength and the ability to absorb power and souls. Oh, and did we mention that he's immune to psychic attacks? He's also pretty invulnerable, able to take numerous attacks without breaking a sweat. Cavixx is also a pretty great manipulator, as shown with how he was able to trick Tiger Claw. But with all of Cavixx's strength, skill, and ability, there's still one thing keeping him from the top: the Seal of the Ancients. Cavixx is forced to obey whoever holds the seal, being unable to harm them, and even if the seal is broken, Mikey showed that even sticking it back together with gum is enough to stop Cavixx.
Impossible! The seal cannot be fixed!
It's a pretty huge weakness, and while it isn't enough to overshadow all of Cavixx's strengths, it is enough to keep him from getting the gold. Finally, our gold medal of power is going to none other than the wacky dimensional being Worm. Worm is one of the 3 reality-bending creators of chaos, only held back by his 5th dimensional prison. With his power, Worm is able to literally bend reality to his will. In other words, his power pretty much has no limit. He can do anything. It's said that he is the most powerful worm in 10 dimensions, and while he can only be freed by granting 3 wishes, he's shown to be pretty good at tricking people into setting him free.
You scared of a teeny tiny wish?
As such, we felt that this weakness wasn't as limiting as Cavixx's weakness. While he's technically not a fighter, Worm's power is just on a whole nother level when compared to the rest of the series characters, and he easily earns the title of the most powerful. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our Weak to Powerful playlist, where we break down who the most powerful characters are in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.